Uh-oh.
In her last two fights. Good way hitting him from that way down.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest from Shantel Cameron after her official announcement that she is done with Matchroom and she has linked up with Queensberry. She said, I really enjoyed the last few days and I can't wait to get going with Queensberry Promotions and TNT Sport Boxing. However, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Eddie Hearn, Frank Smith, Matchroom Boxing, and DAZN Boxing for the last few years and delivering opportunities for me. Contrary to social media and the so-called experts out there, both parties have shaken hands and wished each other well. I will always have some fond memories of my time there and wish them nothing but success, unless it's against me. Thank you to all the Matchroom staff as well. This is a somewhat different tone, somewhat different tune to the one that Shantel was singing not but a few days ago. I could have swore I heard her say that Matchroom didn't promote her. They didn't promote her right. They got her the belts.
Why is she now trying to clean it up?
Could be due to the reaction those statements got from the fans. A lot of people interpreted them as Shantel being ungrateful and being a bit of a malcontent. Nobody wants a reputation for being a malcontent. In any event, she's done with Matchroom and she's linked up with Queensberry. What exactly can Queensberry do for her that Matchroom couldn't? What does she get from being over there instead of being at Matchroom?
Well, she's not in Katie Taylor's shadow at Queensberry. That's the biggest difference, that at Matchroom, everybody takes a backseat to Katie. That's the way it is.
Because as far as their female fighters, she's the biggest name. She's the biggest draw. I think it's a situation akin to what we saw with Anthony Joshua and Dillian White. It's almost like Dillian White resented Eddie Hearn that he's got a more closely knit relationship with Anthony than he does with him.
Like that.
What do you expect? It's all over and done with now. The question is, aside from not being in Katie Taylor's shadow, are there any advantages to being on the Queensberry side of things instead of the Matchroom side of things? Because you're just as far away from a Lauren Price fight as you would have been if you were still at Matchroom. You're just as far away from a Natasha Jonas fight as you would have been if you were still at Matchroom. Now, you're not as far away from a Michaela Mayer fight.
What?
Rumor has it, Natasha Jonas and Michaela Mayer are about to fight for the second time. If they do, and Michaela Mayer wins, I see an avenue of opportunity for a Mayer versus Cameron fight.
Michaela Mayer has boxed at least once on a Queensberry promotion show.
That was the Lucy Wildheart fight on the undercard of Joe Joyce versus Zile Chang, likely due to the good working relationship, the long-standing relationship between Bob Arum of Top Rank and Frank Warren of Queensberry. So let's say that Natasha and Michaela fight again, and let's say that Michaela Mayer wins this time. I see an avenue of opportunity for a Queensberry promotion show where Michaela could defend her newly obtained IBF title against Shantel Cameron.
Because Bob ain't got no problem outsourcing Michaela to either a boxer show or a Queensberry show, and Michaela isn't afraid to travel. That's what she's been doing the last year or so.
Year and a half, however long it's been. So that's a potential target for Shantel, depending on what happens in the Jonas versus Mayer rematch. Another potential target is newly crowned WBC champion Ivana Habazin.
She's not with anybody.
Frank Warren and George Warren have to get a move on when it comes to that, because it won't be long until Ben Shalom is making her offers to box one of his fighters, or Eddie Hearn makes her an offer to box Sandy Ryan, unify titles with her. If Frank Warren, or George Warren, wants to see Shantel Cameron crowned a welterweight champion, they need to get Ivana Habazin on the phone. They need to make her an offer she can't refuse.
Hurry up.
Now, I'm 100% confident that if they get Shantel that fight, Shantel wins that fight and becomes a two-division champion, WBC champion, and one of 4 champions in today's welterweight division. They just have to do it. They have to get a move on. I remember hearing, not but a few days ago, they want to get Shantel back out there over the summer months. It would be ideal to put her in the ring with Ivana.
And Sandy?
Sandy Ryan. Well, look, just because Sandy's at Matchroom and Shantel's at Queensberry, that doesn't mean the door is closed on a fight between them. You could always add that to the Matchroom versus Queensberry tournament in September. You could do that, or you could do it some other time, though I don't get the sense that Shantel is all that crazy about fighting Sandy, because if it were about fighting Sandy, you could have fought Sandy at Matchroom. You could have stayed over there, and they would have made that fight if it were about fighting Sandy. I'm not implying that Shantel is scared. I'm just saying it must not rank very high on her to-do list.
Because she could have had that fight.
If she really wanted it, and technically she still can. It's a story that only time can tell, though ideally, because she's coming off that loss to Katie Taylor, and because she may be campaigning as a welterweight moving forward, Ivana Habazin would be the ideal next opponent for Shantel. We have to see if George and Frank make it happen. Men's middleweight news. I'm sure most of you have heard by now that WBC champion, reigning WBC champion that has not defended the WBC title in 3 years, Jamal Charlo has been arrested for a DWI after Lamborghini crash. A spokesperson for the Pearland Police Department tells TMZ Sports, Charlo, riding in his red Lambo, and another car were involved in a collision around 6:41 p.m., but after a verbal argument between the two drivers ensued, Charlo left the scene, which cops say is a no-no. When authorities attempted to pull him over, they say Charlo ignored their sirens until he was boxed in by cops at a red light roughly a mile away from the accident area. Cops say they arrested the 33-year-old at the scene, and when they administered sobriety tests at the jail a short while later, he showed signs of intoxication.
You knew this guy was on a downward spiral a few weeks ago when he called into Aiden Ross's podcast, or his live stream, or whatever you call it,
demanding payment for what would have been a collaboration between him and the young Kick streamer. Kick is the streaming platform I believe he uses. You could hear that Jamal was under the influence, that he was inebriated.
He was drunk.
Seems like every time you see Jamal now, he's drunk out of his mind. Jamal Charlo was ultimately booked on 3 separate misdemeanor charges. DWI with a blood alcohol level of greater than 0.15, fleeing a police officer, and leaving the scene of a crash involving more than $200 worth of damage. How this guy is still WBC champion, why this guy is still WBC champion, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what the point is. I don't know what's in it for the WBC in allowing him to hold that belt, because I can care less about Jamal's personal life.
Fuck him.
Charlo's attorney, Kent Schaefer, tells us drugs were not involved, saying Jamal has been in training. He has not been using any type of drugs.
But he has been hitting the bottle.
He's been hitting the bottle more than he's been hitting the bag.
That's the problem.
Schaefer added that it's his understanding that his client and the others involved in the crash were not injured. We are optimistic that there will be a good solution, Schaefer said. Charlo, the 33-0 twin brother of boxing star Jamal Charlo, last fought in November of last year when he beat Jose Benavidez by way of a decision. The pugilist had been expected to fight Canelo Alvarez next, but the scrap fell through last February. Canelo ended up fighting Jaime Munguia over the weekend and won easily. He'd win easily over Jamal too. I think this incident rules him out of one or some conversations his name has been attached to. I think this rules him out of a Canelo Alvarez fight. I think it rules him out of a Caleb Plant fight as well. As Caleb did say he wants to get him in the ring, I think Jamal has another fight to fight somewhere else now. Boxing insider Rick Glacier said Jamal Charlo doing what he does best. Getting into more trouble, living up to Errol Spence's standards. Things like this stunt is why I include Jamal on the list of fighters that can't be taken seriously anymore. Thank you, Jamal, for publicly showing everyone I was correct.
You know, the sport of boxing has never had any shortage of bad boys in it. You know, guys like Mike Tyson,
Roberto Duran, those rebellious characters, those rebellious archetypes. But at least in previous eras of boxing, your bad boy archetype, your bad boy character, he wasn't just a bad boy outside of the ring, he was a bad boy in the ring too. They got shit done.
Jamal's not a bad boy. He's a fuck-up.
No, he's not a bad boy. He was just on Instagram apologizing to Caleb Plant after Caleb slapped him. He hit the guy so hard, he said sorry.
Wow.
Smack Cam.
Jamal is finished. He's done, as far as I'm concerned. But where before you could have speculated that maybe the WBC is giving him amnesty due to brown paper bag money, bribes, rumor has it that all the money at the PBC has dried up.
They ain't got no money anymore. That's why so many of their fighters are jumping ship at a rapid rate. A good number of them have washed up on the shores of Pro Box. A good chunk of them are going to be fighting on Matchroom.
In that August show, some are going to other promotional outfits. They're all just going their own way and doing their own thing, accenting that the PBC no longer has the fight dates, the resources, or the money to keep these fighters on board. So if they ain't got no money and they're not bribing the WBC, they don't have the money to do that anymore now that Showtime's out of the picture.
What about Amazon?
The Amazon deal is not a deal that is akin to what the Showtime deal was or the Fox deal. No, the Amazon deal is just a distribution deal. They don't seem to be giving them any money.
So, if you ain't got the money to pay the WBC off, to give your fighter amnesty, why does he still have that belt? Especially when he hasn't defended it in 3 years, especially when his last fight, which wasn't even that long ago, it wasn't at middleweight, it was at super middleweight. And especially when you have an interim champion installed, waiting for his title shot.
Carlos Adames, Jamal Charlo is so obviously not returning to the middleweight division, so why don't you hurry up and elevate Carlos Adames to full champion so he can go unify with Lara or go unify with Yanni Beck so that this division can move along.
Why don't you do that?
So this is another one of these souped-up American hype jobs.
And a merit bomb.
For years, I saw guys hype up Jamal Charlo for having done fuck all at junior middle or at middle.
Do shit. He's just loud. He yells a lot.
So last time this guy was in a memorable fight, and what's the best scalp? I mean, seriously, what's the best guy that he fought? What's the best guy that he beat? That so many people were high on him. Doesn't matter anymore. This guy's career is all but done, and the middleweight division and the entire sport of boxing will be better without him. Good riddance to bad rubbish.
Go away. Retire.
You're not a fucking fighter. You're a fucking alcoholic. You're not gonna beat anybody with a pulse. So just quit while you're ahead.
Get the hell out of here!
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, His Excellency Mr. Turki Alalshikh told ESPN that his plan is to fix broken boxing. Turki Alalshikh, the chairman of Saudi Arabia's General Entertainment Authority, controls the biggest purse strings in boxing and said he plans to use that power to fix a sport he told ESPN is broken. We carefully planned our activities for the last 6 months, Alalshikh said. We are spending the money to commercialize our season and at the same time to test the market and know all the secrets about the market. And now we have a lot of information and we have our own studies and we think from what we tested in the last 6 months, there is a big opportunity in boxing, but you must improve the market. You must fix all the problems.
So what's been one of the biggest problems plaguing the sport in recent memory?
Political boundary lines. Political and promotional boundary lines that prevented certain fights from happening, i.e., politics. This guy fights on this platform, those guys fight over there.
Exclusivity deals that bind some fighters to particular networks. This got in the way of fights.
And promoters and their rivalries not wanting to work together. If you think about it in that spectrum, Turki Alalshikh has made a world of difference, especially in the United Kingdom where before Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren were rivals.
No more.
Now they're working together. The hope is that something like that can be achieved here in America. Boxing is broken, but I think we don't need to get everything back together, Alalshikh said. Indeed, boxing sat atop the global sports landscape for much of the 20th century, but with the best matchups being relegated to pay-per-view, the sport's lack of centralized governing body, and the minimization of pugilism at the Olympics, the sport has waned in popularity since. We need to improve it with something else. We have a strategic vision where we have identified untapped opportunities and are committed to market improvement. Now that sounds like a long-term strategy.
Boxing needs one, especially when it comes to the amateurs, when it comes to the Olympics, as the sport is under threat of being removed from the Olympic Games.
I'm actually a bit relieved that Turki Alalshikh is aware of this and he has a plan. Now, my strategy, Alalshikh said, each card, the result of it, connects with another card. The August 3rd card features fighters from several different promotions, a rare feat in a notoriously fractured sport, 2 from Matchroom, 4 from the PBC, and 1 apiece from Top Rank and Golden Boy, ideal with everyone, Alalshikh said. When I started in this field, in the beginning, the promoters competed against each other, but now we managed to get them all to work together.
That's the start.
The problem that boxing has had is that the fight fans, the customers essentially, they had to wait too long to get the fights that they wanted for various reasons. The fighters' purse demands.
You know, maybe they want to wait a little while longer to do a fight so that it'll be worth more money when they do it.
Risks versus rewards, which is a recurring theme in the sport of boxing, that if you're going to take a risk, it better be worth it.
Now it is.
For Terence Crawford, taking on a guy like an Israel Madrimov, that's actually a risky fight. And it's a risky fight for Israel too, but with Turki Alalshikh supplementing the effort to make such a fight happen, it is now possible where before, left to its own devices, we might not have actually gotten this fight.
I don't think we would have got Fury versus Usyk without him.
I mean, a lot of fights, just a lot of fights that we've been enjoying and are about to enjoy. But what about a long-term strategy to stimulate the market, particularly in America, where this used to be the pinnacle, the preeminent market for boxing? Over the years, it has waned.
The appetite for the sport.
It's a combination of things, really. The sport was relegated to premium cable networks that not every American household had, so that limited the size of the audience. Then the big fights, the really big ones, they were relegated to being behind a paywall on pay-per-view.
That made the audience even smaller because not everybody wants to pay per view. That led to a rise in pirate streams because people want to see the fight, but they don't want to pay an arm and a leg to do it.
That resulted in a vicious cycle where the audience and the appetite for boxing in America was getting smaller and smaller. The silver lining is there are emerging markets where the sport is booming. The UK market, the Asian market, an emerging Australian market.
But how do you fix the American one?
Remove the political boundary lines that prevent fights from happening. Make more of the fights you know there's a grassroots interest in.
Get fighters fighting on a regular schedule instead of just once a year.
Better promotion for these events and better coverage of them. Better coverage for the sport.
To raise awareness.
It's not a quick fix. It has to be a consistent, long-term strategy that eventually reaches that many more Americans to where they have to start paying attention. Because every month or every other month, there's a major fight, a major event.
And it's all that anybody's talking about.
This could work, but it's going to take time.